أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Uh, First of all, condolences to everybody on the wafat or shahadat of our Holy Prophet Imam Raza alayhi salam, which you are no doubt observing tonight, tomorrow, today, tomorrow, etc. So we have reached now a very interesting section. وَخُزَّانَ الْعِلْمِ is our next phrase of the Ziyarat, which we are discussing today. So once again, I won't go into depth, but this is a continuation of Assalamu alaikum. So basically what we are saying is Assalamu alaikum Khuzzan al-ilm, Ya Khuzzan al-ilm. Peace be upon you, O those who are the Khuzzanul ilm. Let's start with the words first of all, and then we'll go into the exposition. So Khuzzan, this is the plural of Khazin. Like, for example, we have Juhal is the plural of Jahil. So Khazin becomes Khuzzan. And this is from the root word Khazana. And the meaning of Khazana is to gather, record, and look after something in a specific place. So Khazana means to gather or to record and look after something in a specific place. Whether that thing is a physical thing that you're gathering and recording and preserving, or it could be a metaphysical thing, a non-physical thing. So, for example, you could have money, gold, treasure to be put into a place that is also known as khazana. And it can be something non-physical. For example, here we're discussing knowledge, ilm. Ilm is placed in a specific place. It is safeguarded and looked after. So here we are saying to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, that you are the place in which knowledge is kept, safeguarded, protected. So a khazin could be something similar to a collector, a guard, a safekeeper, but he has access to that thing all the time. It's not like it's kept far away and then it takes him a long time to get there and open it and then retrieve it. No, it's kept all the time. Ilm, khuzanul ilm, ilm is of course knowledge. So now, when you have a physical thing and a metaphysical thing, a physical thing is kept in a physical place, like a chest or a box or a case or a safe deposit box, for example. But where is a metaphysical thing stored, right? Like knowledge and these kinds of things. Where is knowledge stored? Knowledge is stored in the heart. So the treasure and the keeper of that treasure, they are not separate. They are one and the same thing. That thing becomes part of them. So they are inseparable. So it's not like the Imams are just trustees of knowledge. They just look after it. No, they are actually that knowledge. That knowledge becomes part of them. Now, the Imams are linked to Allah, as we've said before. The Imams are linked to Allah. If you want to know how we get to that point, you'll have to look at the previous discussions. And due to the grace of Allah, Imams have access to this massive amount of knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who grants them access? Allah grants them access. In Allah's knowledge, we don't have any time restrictions. It's not like Allah cannot see the past, present, and future. Hence, the Imams also can see past, present, and future, because the knowledge given to them is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, yes, it is possible, and we do have instances where there may be something that the Imams, they choose not to know it, or they do not choose to know it. Either way, we can play with the words. They choose not to know it, or they do not choose to know it. That is possible. That is absolutely possible, and we'll discuss more in a minute. So we have, for example, now, so that was Ayatullah Jawadi's introduction. Now I want to go on to another scholar's work, which is Ayatullah Zia'abadi, Marhum Zia'abadi. Now I'm going to refer to his work and look at this in more depth. So can we fathom, when we say that Imams are linked to Allah and Allah's knowledge, can we ever fathom the extent of the knowledge of Allah? Of course we cannot, because it is part of His essence. It is part of Him. It's not separable from Him. So, everything that we say about Allah is that He is, really not understandable in the fullest sense. We can only understand a little bit, and even that according to what he tells us about himself. So what has he told us about his knowledge? Quran says the following. This is verse number 59 of surah number 6. وَإِنَّهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. Here we're going to start our discussion on accessing that knowledge of Allah, known as ilmul ghaib, known as the knowledge of the unseen, knowledge of the hidden. Do we have access? Can anyone have access? Is it just for Allah? Is it untouchable, unreachable? Is it something off limits to people? Let's have a look at what the Quran says. So the Quran says, وَإِنَّهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ. With him are the treasures of the unseen. لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. No one knows them except for him. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. He knows whatever there is in the land and the sea. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. No leaf falls from any tree except that he knows about it. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ. Nor is there a grain in the darkness of the earth. وَلَا رَتْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ. Nor anything fresh or wet or dry or withered, except illa fi kitabin mubin. It is in a recorded book. This verse would suggest that no one has access to the hidden knowledge. But however, hold on, we know the Quran is full of general rules and then exceptions. So this is a general rule. The general rule is that's his. He has the knowledge, only him. And the extent of his knowledge is very vast. He knows what is in the heavens, in the earth, in the sea. He knows about the leaves on the trees. He knows about the grains in the earth. He knows every wet and dry thing, meaning everything. He knows every single thing. So there's no limit of Allah's knowledge. Second verse. This is now Surah Yunus, Surah number 10, verse number 61. Allah says here, وَمَا يَعْزُبُ عَنْ رَبِّكَ مِنْ مِثْقَالِ ذَرَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He says, not even an atom's weight escapes your Lord in the earth or in the sky, nor is there anything smaller or bigger than this, but again, إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. It is recorded in a manifest book. In other words, this book means the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just giving a way for us to understand that, it's all recorded, it's all there, it's all present, it's in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But yet we say Ahlul Bayt have access to this knowledge. So how do we come to this conclusion? Again, let us look at the Holy Qur'an. Surah Jinn, verses number 26 and 27. Alimul Ghaib. He is the knower of the unseen. فَلَا يُظْهِرُ عَلَى غَيْبِهِ أَحَدًا. He does not disclose his unseen to anyone. Next verse. إِلَّا مَنِ ارْتَضَى. Except to those he approves of, min rasulin, from the prophets. So you have a general rule that yes, hidden knowledge generally, people don't have access to it. Many people, if you ask them, we don't have access to the hidden knowledge of Allah. However, there are some exceptions. إِلَّا مَنِ ارْتَضَى. There are some people that he approves of and they get access. They are given special kind of access. Similarly, in Surah Ali Imran 179, Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُطْلِعَكُمْ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ. Allah will not acquaint you with the unseen. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْتَبَى مِنْ رُسُلِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. But Allah chooses from his apostles whomever he wishes to give access to the unseen. So we do have a general rule. However, we also have exceptions. This is the way the Quran does it. It gives us general things and then it provides us with exceptions. Intercession is one of these things as well. You'll see some verses, they'll say no one intercedes. But then you'll see other verses which say except whom Allah gives permission. So Ahlul Bayt, the Imams alayhimu salam, are in this group of exceptional people given access to the hidden knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowledge of the unseen, ilmul ghaib. They are in this group which is given the exception. So if that's the case, that they are given access to Allah's knowledge, then what is the difference between knowledge of Allah and knowledge of Ahlul Bayt, for example? Are we saying that they're one and the same? Are we saying that they're at the same level? Are we saying that Allah's knowledge is equal to Ahlul Bayt's knowledge? Let's discuss this a bit further. So the first point to make is the knowledge of Allah is part of His being. It cannot be separated from Allah. You cannot think of God without knowledge. If that's the case, then He's not God. He has to have knowledge because that is part of His essential being. That is part of His essence. You cannot separate the ilm of Allah and Allah. However, can you think of human beings without knowledge? Of course you can. It's not part of the essential nature. They can still be human beings, still be beings without knowledge. So for Allah, it's essential. It's absolutely necessary that He has His knowledge. But for others, it is not. Number two, Imams, the thing with their knowledge is that they can choose to know and when not to know. Allah is not like that. Allah knows everything all the time, at all times. But Imams, as we'll see in a minute, they can choose to know or not to know certain things. Now, what does this mean? It means that, for example, if you take our example, we may want to know something. I may want to know what is happening in Karachi at the moment, what is happening in Toronto, what is happening in New York, what is happening in Mashhad at the moment. I have no idea, right? I have no idea independently. I cannot absolutely access those places and know what's happening. I want to know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. I have no idea. I cannot see into the future, right? So this is our limitation. We can only see those things that we have access to and that we can learn or we can observe and these things. However, the Imams have unlimited, unrestricted access to these things. So then why don't they know everything? Why sometimes you'll see in a hadith, they'll ask a person, who are you? What is your name? Where are you from? Do you know this person? How is this person? Why are they asking these questions? Because they choose not to know these things. A question comes, why would they choose not to know? Why do they just choose to know everything? Here we have two responses. Number one, they have to lead normal lives in that sense. They have to operate in this world as normal people. They have to a certain extent, be like us, as normal as us at certain times. So then when does it kick in and when does it not kick in? What makes them all of a sudden know something and not know something? This is the beautiful point. Because their knowledge is linked to the irada of Allah, the will of Allah. When He wants them to know something in His path, in His mission, in His way, they will know it. So their knowledge and their knowing and not knowing is all linked to the will of God. When it's in the will of Allah for them to know, they come to know. When it's not in the will of Allah, they will not know. They are completely in sync with the will of Allah. وَمَا يَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. They do not desire anything except that Allah desires it, right? So the example that is given by Ayatullah Zia'abadi is like, he says, it's like they are sitting next to a curtain. This curtain separates the hidden and the known, the seen and the unseen, and they're sitting by this curtain. They're operating in the known world, the seen world. Whenever they wish, whenever it's in the irada of Allah, they can easily just move the curtain, use the access, and go into the unseen world and look at the knowledge from there and gain that knowledge. Why? Because, as I said, they led normal lives, they interacted with people as normal as possible. But when the Imam needs to do something special, for example, to defend himself, to prove himself, to shed some light on some matter which is very important, then they use their knowledge and they use their position and they declare it. The same can be said for their strength. Do they have strength? They have miraculous strength. But do they always use it? Do they, for example, walk around on air? Do they float around? Do they fly around? Do they, for example, appear in 1 second in Medina and the next second in Makkah? Why did they have to walk to Makkah, ride to Makkah, go to Makkah? They could have just transported there in some miraculous way. The Holy Prophet, he uses his miracle to, for example, split the moon, but then he has to pick up a sword and fight in the battle. Why not just split the battle and, open up the earth and let it swallow everybody? No, there are some things they are allowed to do by Allah, some things they are not allowed to do. Sometimes they have to lead what we would call normal lives and use the normal means, and sometimes not. So this is all linked back to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a nice story which illustrates this. The Holy Prophet, on one occasion, he was going somewhere, and when they come out and they're ready to get on their animals and travel, they see that the camel of the Holy Prophet is not there. It had somehow run off. So they asked the Holy Prophet, now what do we do? He said, let's go look for it. Now, when he said, let's go look for it, some of the munafiqeen of the time, they started to say, what kind of person is this? On one hand, he claims he's a prophet. He's been sent by God. He knows the Qur'an. He gets revelation. He speaks to angels. On another hand, he doesn't even know where his camel is. What kind of person is he? The Prophet heard that. And then the Prophet said, excuse me, I know where it is. Go to this place behind this mountain in this valley. There's a tree there. You'll find that the reins of my camel have been caught in the branches of this tree. You'll find my camel there. Go there, untie it, and bring it. In other words, generally in their normal interactions, they would choose not to delve into that hidden knowledge of Allah, because they have to lead normal lives. Otherwise, as I said, they could be just living supernatural lives, and that would not be practical for us to follow in that sense. But at times when he has to now defend his position, he has to prove himself, he has to shut the criticisms of the munafiqeen who are now trying to make fun of him or trying to expose him that he's not a prophet. He has to defend himself. So here he reveals his knowledge and he tells them, no, I know where my camel is. It's in this place. Before he chose not to know, but then when he came under scrutiny and when there was a challenge and when there was a chance that others may be misguided, he chose to reveal his knowledge. Second Khalifa Umar once asked Amirul Mu'mineen that, oh Ali, we ask you so many questions. You answer them straight away. Everything we ask you is like, you just answer straight away. How come we can't do that? How come we're not able to answer like that and you are able to answer like that? Amirul Mu'mineen asked him, he said, oh Umar, tell me, how many fingers do you have on your hand? Umar said 5. He said, did you have to think about it? Did you have to spend time researching, looking into it, thinking about it? He said, no, obviously, it's right there in front of me, 5, I know this. Amirul Mu'mineen said, exactly, the way that is in front of you, in front of me is all the other knowledge that you ask about. I can also just simply, it's in front of me, it doesn't take any effort, I can just take that knowledge and I can answer your questions. So this was the first part. I think we will leave it here. We'll do the rest of it next week. It's a very interesting part of the Ziyarat about the ilm of the Imams. There are some other discussions, inshallah, we will have it next week. Now we will look at the questions, if there are any, and try to answer them. We just have like 5 minutes, I think. Question 1, does the mercy of awliya, mercy of Imams, we should say, overcome Islamic hudud? The Ahlul Sunnah say if Aisha was wrong in Jamal, she should have been punished with death by Imam Ali. What do we say to that? Okay, so let's answer this one first. So the thing about Jamal, there are a number of explanations which our ulama give as to why there was not what we would call punishment on Aisha. So let's get a few things straight, yeah? When we say punishment, what do we mean? We mean killing, yeah? We mean putting her to the sword, killing her, right? That would have been the punishment befitting Aisha in that sense. However, first question is, so our ulama have given a number of responses. The first response is it jais when you have a woman who was not actively in combat, she didn't pick up a sword, she didn't ride and kill people, she was not one-to-one with people, she was taken as a prisoner. Can you kill a prisoner? Is it allowed? Many ulama will say, no, it's not allowed. Once you have a prisoner, you deal with them in a different way. You don't just put them to death. So this is one response. Another response is that actually this was the instruction of the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet had foreseen this, he had predicted this, and he had told both Aisha and Amir al-Mu'mineen. He told Aisha that one of my wives is going to do this kind of mischief. Then she actually laughed because she found it a bit strange that one of your wives would do this. And he then looked at her and he said, make sure it's not you. In other words, it is going to be you, but you still have a choice in the matter. And then there are other indicators as well regarding this. So number one is the argument that is it even jaiz for when you take a woman, especially a prisoner, is it jaiz to then kill them? It's not jaiz according to many of our teachings. Number two is that the Holy Prophet foresaw this, and he had told Amir al-Mu'mineen that there will be a conflict between you and her. And my order to you is that when this happens, you return her to her home. So Amir al-Mu'mineen did exactly what the Holy Prophet said. He returned Aisha with a lot of, with her dignity and everything intact to her home. Number three, the obvious answer would be that this would have caused more fitna had he punished her in some way. Can you imagine that this Jamal, the Battle of the Camel itself, was a big fitna? It had the potential to split the Ummah, and it did split the Ummah. So now, to say that I'm going to actually punish the wife of the Holy Prophet, imagine what that would have done. That would have even created more fitna in the Ummah and in the community. And then we have a number of examples that we can give. For example, look at the Holy Prophet's life. There were times when he could have taken harsh hudud and punishment of certain people, but he chose not to, because it would have had the opposite effect. It would have had split the people even more. Some of the munafiqeen, for example, he doesn't subject them to the punishment, whereas he subjected others to the punishment. Why? Because of the potential that it will produce even more disunity in the community. People would have taken it in a wrong way. During Amir al-Mu'mineen's time, Muawiyah was just around the corner. He would have jumped on this opportunity to kick up a whole fuss. Just the killing of Usman, who was a very questionable personality in himself, created so much strife. Now imagine the wife of the Holy Prophet. Imagine what they could have done with that. If they could have run with that, how much disunity that would cause. And then you have, for example, the example of Samiri during the time of Nabi Musa. Why did Nabi Musa not kill him? No, Allah says, you know what? Banish him. Banish him, let him stay alone, let him stay away from everybody. And he's someone that no one should go near. Aisha, do you hear even a peep out of her after Jamal? You don't. Imagine the shame and the discomfort she felt that she had to return to Medina, the whole world knowing what she had done. The Qur'an saying that, oh, wives of the Prophet, remain in your homes. She went against the Qur'an itself. So, maybe that was even worse for her, really, in that sense. So it avoided fitna. It subjected her to this kind of shame in front of other people that, what have you done? You tried to split the ummah. You didn't go according to the Holy Qur'an. You went against the Holy Qur'an's instructions and everything else that we've said. Yeah. So I'll end there with that. I hope that's answered. Number two, how do we understand verses where Allah attributes anger and offense to himself? For example, indeed, those who offend Allah and His Apostle are cursed by Allah. Yeah. This is a very special question. Basically, Allah doesn't have emotions. He doesn't have body parts. He doesn't have hormones. However, He has placed His happiness and His anger in the hearts of His chosen ones. So someone comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and asked him that here in the Quran we read فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَا إِنْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ. When they upset us, regarding Fir'aun, when they upset us, we took revenge. So what does it mean that Allah gets upset? Can Allah get upset? Imam Sadiq replied that إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَأْسَفُ كَأَسَفِنَا. Allah doesn't get upset like we get upset. وَلَكِنَّهُ خَلَقَ أَوْلِيَاءَ. But He has created certain people. يَأْسَفُونَ وَيَرْضَوْنَ. They get upset and they get happy. وَهُمْ مَخْلُوقُونَ. They are His creatures. فَجَعَلَ رِضَاهُمْ لِنَفْسِهِ. He has placed their happiness as His happiness. وَسَخَتَهُمْ لِنَفْسِهِ سَخَتًا. And their being upset, He has attributed to Himself. So although literally He's not becoming happy and sad in an emotional sense, but because they are so close to Him and His mission and His way, and they work for Him, He places them almost like Himself. That, if you upset them, you've upset me. Like Janab Fatima, Inna Allah la yarda li rida Fatima wa yaghdibu li ghadabiha. God is pleased at the pleasure of Fatima and is displeased at her displeasure. So this is another discussion altogether. Allah says in this verse that the Prophet does not know the hypocrites, but we know them. Yeah, in this kind of thing, when it says like, you don't know them, but we know them. Yes, you don't know them independently. You don't know them independently. We will choose, or you will choose, based on your close connection with us, to know them or not know them. There are times when He will choose maybe not to know them. At times He will choose to know them. So this doesn't conflict with ilmul ghaib of Rasulullah. Rasulullah's ilm ghaib is there, it's established, but there are times when He may not know or choose not to know. Or it could mean that independently you don't know. We know and we will bestow the knowledge upon you. You don't know independently from us. So this is what it means. There were no other questions, so I think we can stop now.